Hey guys, it's Nate, and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be diving into part 4 of my video log series about my custom guitar build. Hope you enjoy. We start this video off after finishing the first half of the face glue up. Prior to gluing up the other half, I wanted to sign my name on the inside of the guitar because I thought I would put my mark on a place hidden unless you knew exactly where to look. After that, the second half was ready to be glued up. I started with cleaning the surfaces that would be in contact with each other and then applied a liberal amount of glue to the clean surfaces. Once the pieces were placed together, I had to place a boatload of clamps to provide forces down to keep the surfaces of the face and body together, but also needed forces that brought the two midlines of the face pieces together to create a proper midline seam. The large woodworking clamps that you see here were used because the reach of these clamps provided the force needed on the center block of the body. Glue was also added to the midline seam to further ensure that the seam was as closed as it possibly could be. After all the clamps were in place, I moved the body off to the side room to prevent accidental bumping while the glue set up. The next day in the shop, I got back to fine-tuning the neck to the required shape. I used a special gauge that had the proper curvature needed on the neck. You can see in this frame that I still had a while to go before the whole surface of the red gauge was in contact with the mahogany underside of the neck. I also took this time to mark out the curvature needed on the transition from the neck to the headstock piece so that my hand will rest comfortably in that position. The same gauge is used but with a different curvature to measure the lower parts of the neck. Here I was much closer to the desired curvature. Hey, yes you. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and like the video if you are feeling generous. Thank you. Finally, after a long time of sanding the top of the neck, it started to show some progress as the gauge started to get a little bit closer to completely resting on the neck like I wanted. After a little fine-tuning in the midsection of the neck, it was time for a mini jam session. Now that the guitar body had finished gluing up for a couple days, it was finally ready to be taken out of the clamps. I started working on the body by cutting out the slot that would house the joint of the neck to the body, but it still needed a lot of cleanup after the joint was cut. This was accomplished with the router. I used a bit that rested upon the mahogany underneath the piece and created a smooth transition between the two species of wood. Here you can see the difference between the smooth routered section and the pre-routered section of the pickup cutouts. I finished by routering out the bridge pickup cutout. Here you can see the finished pickup cutouts. I then used the same router on the edges of the guitar to smooth them like I did on the cutouts for the pickups. Perfect form. Once the body was roughly smoothed by the router, I took it over to the spindle sander to give it the finishing touches. It was now time to smooth out the back side of the body. I did this with the tabletop router and a large round over bit since I wanted to ensure that the edge was completely smooth so it wasn't uncomfortable when resting against my body while playing. I did a second pass to deepen the round over. And here was the product. Looks pretty good. Back over at the neck, the fretboard was a little bowed from the sanding I did in the middle and needed some work on the edges to get it a little bit straighter. The pink line showed the spots that needed to come down. I accomplished this with time and files. Occasionally I checked the edges with a straight edge to check my progress. Similar editing on the fretboard was needed on both sides, so I flipped it around and accomplished the same goal on the opposite side. After some finishing touches, it was on to my favorite part of the project so far, the inlay. My friend has a really cool tool that was specifically designed for guitar inlay preparations. It's a small router that can be used for very delicate work, which is what I needed for this part of the project. After getting most of the cavities to size to fit the inlays, I began to do light alterations to make sure my inlay would fit in their newly routed positions. I used sandpaper to create small bevels on the pieces so that they could be tapped easier into the headstock. Tiny sanding sticks also carved away some material on the headstock walls to ensure that the pieces were nice and snug. I finished by adding some glue and tapped them in. Some sawdust and glue was used in the outer edges to fill any tiny holes between the inlay pieces and the router channels. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the build up to this point. If you're feeling generous, please think about subscribing to my channel to get notified when the next part of the build gets uploaded, as well as liking the video for the YouTube algorithm. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.